Différentes casquettes.
The talk is going to be a little bit different. So
Yes.
we are going really to analyze probably, yeah. So just, put it like this. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so thank you very much really for giving us this opportunity. We are really proud really to be partner with this event. In fact, Smart Capital is the national operator of Startup Tunisia, just an introduction of what we do. And we've been really, assigned, this mission almost 2 years ago, where we implement, in fact, three important, axes, of the Startup Tunisia that I'm going really to put in details, in the presentation. But we are extremely important, in developing, our action in Africa. Africa is key in our strategy. In fact, the fact that it is labeled in euro is just really to give the opportunity, to the Tunisian startup really to expand internationally. And Africa is extremely strategic for in this expansion. So let me go, in fact, into the details of the Startup Act, and then, of course, close, my presentation on speaking about Startup Tunisia in general with the other two axes, which we consider are extremely complementary, but important really to succeed, in putting, an excellent startup ecosystem in Tunisia. So, in fact, it starts, let me tell, my talk as a story, how the thing starts and how the thing has been really implemented. So it started with what we call a spark, It's a social and political revolution. In the talk of Mr. the Minister, he mentioned that after the revolution, people are really willing really to take initiatives, not only political initiatives, but also entrepreneurship initiatives, The revolution gave them really also a lot of, lot of incentives really to be yourself, to do your project. So the social and political revolution is one trigger. The second is the need of a new economic and social paradigm. Everybody is really fed up, really, of a system, of a process which didn't really prove to be profitable for the young people, particularly, and the society in general, and the birth of a startup ecosystem at the end. In 2016, it started really with an initiative, and probably I can say that the minister is here, who really, Mr. Nu'man El-Fehri, very good friend of mine, which, frankly speaking, I really give him the credit of really starting the thought. At least he was in the government, he was really taking the initiative to gather, the people around him, both in the private sector and also in the civil society, to be able really to make kind of a brainstorming, how we can really start, for which way we can really choose in order really to continue and to set up, this. So several startup founders, mentors, investors, enablers were really involved and engaged in the process. This movement has really taken some time. It's not really obvious, really, to when you are really convinced of the idea. It's not really obvious that those who are around you can really buy in, and back you. On the idea. So it needs really sometimes really to be able really to go through the process and following it. 2018, finally, in fact, after almost 2 years, the law has been voted by the parliament, and also it took 1 year for the promulgation of the law. So it's in April 2019 has been really the promulgation of the law and the effective date of the start of the Startup Act. In fact, Startup Act measures are divided into three: for the entrepreneurs, for the investors, and for the startup itself. For the entrepreneurs, a series of measures, I can say even advantage. Somebody is really can have a scholarship really to survive during the period in order really to concentrate in his business. Patenting also is one of the important issue that has been really covered, in previous programs, but this has been really bringing something extremely important for those who have a really creative ideas. For the investors, beside tax relief, an additional tax relief. The investment instruments has been really imagined in order really to ease, the process of investment. For the startups, many advantages, and we consider that they are really revolutionary. Essentially, the special account in foreign currency, which is a unique process. It happened in many countries, but in Tunisia, it's unique. When it happened, it really gave a lot of hope for a startup really to create their own startup. Just I'm going really to have, the data. Time is really running. So this is the definition, how we define, startup in Tunisia, and these are the criteria for which you'll be able really to get, your label. The first three are some measurable, parameters: the age, the size, the size of the capital, etc., and also the number of shareholders in the company, etc. These are measurable, but there are two others which are quite, subjective criteria, which it needs opinion, it needs analysis, it needs pitch, it needs listening to you to hear, if you are creative and if your business is scalable. So these are the criteria for which you are really eligible to be able really to get your label. The process is digitalized from one end to another. Smart capital is really, it's not because I'm a director general. I'm really finding, the system really set and based, and the team is excellent. They're really making an excellent work, to follow the process and to make the process extremely transparent and smooth, in order really to have, the process and give the chance to whoever at midnight, at 8, at any time, really to apply and to have its chance to apply, to get his chance really for the label. So we receive on average 40 applicants each month, and mostly half of them will be granted, their label. As I said, the process is 100% digital, transparent process, and we have this, sessions, on a regular basis. No vacation in summer and on holidays, absolutely not. The system is always continuous, in order really to not lose any chance for a startup to be created. We had a survey, in fact, not only survey, but a study, which show that 8.1% of all those who apply for a startup or for a label are PhD candidates. And almost 51.6%, they have master's degree. And or 16.3%, in fact, master's degree, but here in one, we say bac plus 5, bac plus, but this is equivalent of master's degree. That's, for friends, from abroad who are not really familiar with the baccalaureate system and the French system. But unfortunately, in fact, I say unfortunately because it's a subject which is extremely dear to me. We'd like really to see more women entrepreneurs. So, but the statistic and the survey show that only 5% of them are women. But as I said, or let's say as the minister said in his speech, the trend is really growing. For women, essentially those who are really involved in science and technology. Diaspora also, they are representing, a big chunk, of those who are really applying, as 55.6% really are really applying for this. Another very, very promising point is that we have 15 nationalities applying really for the startup label and to set base, in Tunisia. Yeah, you have French, African, Ivory Coast, etc. They are really applying. Algeria, Morocco, etc. Also Turkish, etc. So they're really applying. I think South Korea also is there, but I know I'm not really seeing the flag of South Korea. So this is give for us a lot of hope that Tunisia could really be, a platform of, this is our objective, in fact, of Startup Tunisia. I will define it at the end. Is indeed, Tunisia can really welcome, startup from abroad really to set base in Tunisia and to expand abroad, and particularly, of course, in Africa. Most of those with whom you speak, what's the most important factor which really encourage you really to set base in Tunisia? One is the access, I mean, to the African market. Second is the access to talents, you know, and of course the networking, which is considered to be very, very important. In terms of industry, I mean, for a startup, I mean, almost 16%, I mean, within the marketplace. That means people are really making platform for e-commerce, handicraft, whatever. So it's really, and also there is a big, how to say, chunk, I mean, on the business software and service, on ed tech, health tech, creative industry, etc. So I think there is, as we accumulated together, there is 21.5% of labeled startups which they operate in deep tech, artificial intelligence, robotics, IoT, biotech, blockchain, cryptocurrency, and so on. In terms of how to say turnover and fund really generated, I mean, by the startups, I mean, on average, I mean, the startups turnover is in 2020 is around 72 million Tunisian dinar, which is the equivalent of $20 million, 20 million euro, which is reasonable, just really to start up as, I mean, as a startup on a seed stage. We have on the Tunisian startup 17 internationally labeled, which have a turnover of 55.3 million Tunisian dinar during 2020, and 5 Tunisian startups with a turnover which is less. So just really to explain, I mean, that these international startups, they are really coming into Tunisia with their network already. I mean, when you compare, I mean, the data, you understand that first they have a network, and also they have, I mean, a good really potential of really growing, I mean, from Tunisia. Another also average on terms of employees, I mean, most of the startups, they employ around 8 employees. There is 82, let's now speak about the fundraising. There is 82 operations, I mean, investment operations, I mean, Tunisia in 2020. With a total of 23.2 million Tunisian dinar. Personally, I consider that it's a little, but it's a good beginning. It's a good start, really, to be able really to so now so this is Startup Act. So these are the results of what has been really put in place for the last 2 years, and what is the real outcome and the figures of this outcome. Now, we consider this year, after the launching of Innov'i, the launching of Flywheel, I mean, both the Startup Invest and the Startup Ecosystem, that Startup Tunisia program and brand really has been really launched, I mean, this year. So Startup Tunisia is an ambitious project which is really willing to make Tunisia a country of startups at the crossroads of the Mediterranean, the MENA region, and Africa. So Startup Act, as I've been really saying, so it's mostly, I mean, is dealing with the financial, fiscal, whatever incentives really for the startup, both the investors, the entrepreneurs, and the startup itself, which is how to say, couronné by the label. That means by fine end, I mean, having the label. Startup Invest is an extremely key, because after really creating many startups, of course, you have really to okay, 5 minutes. We have really to prepare, I mean, the funding for them. So it's a new mechanism, a fund of fund, which with a target of 200 million euro. We have also considered within this program, I mean, a VC incubator for GPs for the first comers, or the first, let's say, team investors. So we are really considering, I mean, creating, I mean, an incubator for them. And I really would like really to thank all the sponsors who are really backing us, I mean, on putting in place, I mean, this incubator. On parallel, also, in order not to create, I mean, a dichotomy, I mean, in the Tunisian economy, which is really based on SMEs, we also are launching, I mean, Innov'i. It's not really part of the startup program, but it's a part of the big project of the World Bank and CDC and also Smart Capital, is the Innov'i, which is for innovative SMEs. So we'd like also to give the chance for SMEs to be innovative and to adopt technology and really to strengthen their competitiveness with technology. The third pillar is the startup ecosystem. All countries, please trust me, that all countries who have succeeded on their startup policy, on their startup project and programs, they develop a very strong program for the ecosystem, for the supporting structures, for the incubator, accelerator, startup studios. They are really backing new programs. They are backing also successful programs in order really to continue coaching and backing, I mean, startups in order that they will continue their path toward success. The objective in general, I mean, of Startup Tunisia is to create 1,000 startup labels. We are, as Mr. the Minister said, we are now almost with 600 startups. We are just beyond our objective. So, I mean, the objective is, hopefully, it's very easily to reach. The objective also is to create 10,000 jobs, essentially young graduates, those, I mean, in engineering, technology, etc. I mean, of course, this is what most of the startup needs. With 1 billion Tunisian dinar cumulative turnover, and with 1 Tunisian unicorn. In order really to have 1 Tunisian unicorn, you have at least to have 1,000 startups. As the Nobel Prize laureate always say, in order really to have an excellent idea, you have to have millions of ideas. So we have really to have, at least we are so modest, to have 1,000 startups. We hope from 1,000 startups we can have a unicorn. Thank you so much.